So one of my most anticipated films of 2025 has finally been released, Superman. Now the question is, did James Gunn deliver? Yes and no. Now to put things into context, when they first announced the new Superman movie to be releasing, a lot of the people thought that Henry Cavill will be back as Superman and it will be a completely new reboot of the DC franchise. However, it was confirmed that James Gunn will be directing it. He's going to bring his vision towards this new franchise, the DC Universe, instead of the DC Extended Universe, and that it will be a new cast where it will be a different Superman and everything else will be completely rebooted. Now, during that time, I remember Twitter and how Snyder fans in general were very, very heated about the fact that Henry Cavill would no longer be playing Superman. But for me, I think it was a good decision because as much as I like Henry Cavill to be playing as Superman, the way his character was justified in terms of like the DC Extended Universe treated him and the studio as a whole, I feel like there just had to be a change and it just wouldn't really hit the same. But it wasn't very easy for this film to be greenlit. The studio was going through an immense pressure of basically having the Superman film to be a success. And if it wasn't a success, then pretty much the whole franchise of the DC Universe that James Gunn had envisioned would have been scrapped. So for this movie to be succeeding, they had to go through a very good marketing scheme. And they did that really well. I mean, you could tell through the way they went through TikTok, Instagram, and the way they put posters, and even the whole thing about Canary Wolf where there was a Superman statue on top of Canary Wolf, which was absolutely amazing to see. So they did a very good job and they put so much effort into the marketing, and I'm very glad that they did that. Now, I had a lot of fun watching this film. From start to end, what James Gunn was able to encapsulate in terms of the world building of the DC franchise, basically inhabiting it into like an established franchise where we see these characters are basically more experienced and they have a lot more like background towards them, and how like even civilians during these events, they don't really feel that phased at all and it's like a norm to them. And the fact they were able to do this with Superman, as he is the face of DC Universe and he's also the face of superheroes in general. And bear in mind, since this is the start of the universe, we haven't really seen much in terms of like Gotham or like Central City or something like that. We've only seen Metropolis, and the fact they made Metropolis very much a big city with Luthor Corp and like the Daily Planet and stuff like that, I am very excited to see the fact that they were able to do that and also make it very, very comic book accurate. And I'm really happy with the fact that they made it very comic book accurate. A lot of these films, a lot of superhero films in general, they tend to basically shy away from the whole comic book aspect of the thing, and they wanted to make it realistic, and I don't blame them because The Dark Knight started the whole thing and you know how much of a success that is. But when you do it over and over again, it gets to a point where like kind of get bored, and the fact that this film doesn't really shy away from the comic book aspects, it actually feels like you're actually reading a comic book in general. It's actually really good to see, and I'm really, really glad they actually went through the goofy elements, the supernatural elements into this film. I would also say that I'm very happy with the fact they did characters a lot of justice, particularly in Superman, because a lot of the times we see him as the evil version, hence why we get an evil versions of Superman. Say for example, in The Boys we have Homelander, Invincible we have Omni-Man, so much more reincarnations and incarcerations of it. And the fact that we're finally seeing a Superman who's actually doing something good, it's very good to see. And David Cornswear, in my opinion, is Superman. And I'm very excited to see him establish this character for probably another decade and give us hope. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane was another good addition to the cast, and I feel like she played Lois as a really good character, and I think she actually deserved it to be part of that casting because she actually played an accurate depiction of Lois, unlike Amy Adams, where she just feels kind of useless and stuff, just basically being forced into it. And the fact she's being into this film, she has like a purpose in terms of it. But the character I think took the show and stole the show for me was Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor. This guy is a D1 hater, I kid you not. This guy would do anything to hate Superman, and the fact that he plays this role so well, a lot of the times when you watch the film, you actually want to hate this character, and when you really hate the character instead of the actor, you know it's doing a very good job, you know the actor is doing a good job, and you know the film is doing a good job too. So imagine they make Lex Luthor a very menacing villain, a D1 hater in fact for Superman. Imagine what will happen if Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, comes into the DCU. Bro, this guy will hate so much, and I'm very excited to see see that. I'm very excited the fact that they're gonna actually make villains hate the character, like just hate the character with a passion. Like even if they do something good, they would just hate him, like with for no reason. I'm very excited to see that type of stuff in the DC universe. I also can't forget about the fact that the Justice Gang is also in the film. Particularly, I think Mr. Terrific played a very good role. In fact, he carried the film a bit. Like, he had his own motion going on. Like, he does his thing. I also can say that Guy Gardner did a good thing too. Nathan Fillion just plays the character really well. And also, Hawkgirl was another great addition to the franchise too. And I'm very excited to see Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Maxwell Lord to be introduced into the Peacemaker season 2. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how they're going to be playing the role. I think it'll probably be a cameo in fact. But even if it is a cameo, it's good to see that they are actually interacting with other characters in the franchise already. Now, my main problem when it comes to the film does come from the narrative, but before I get into it, I have to warn you guys that I'm going to get into spoilers. I have warned you guys, so yeah. So in the beginning of the film, we get a title card of a scenario of what is happening. And don't get me wrong, this is a very, very Star Wars-esque type of thing that they're trying to do. And it could work for Star Wars, but I just don't feel like it would work for a superhero film. Because a lot of the things that was said into those sequences, we don't really see them happening before. But I understand what James Gunn is trying to do. He's trying to basically move the story forward, but I would have really loved to see as to what was happening during that time and how Superman was able to basically lose for the first time. Another thing I had a problem was the narrative that they were trying to add too much into this film in particular. A lot of it's happening right around the middle because they're trying to basically fill up all the plot. It is one of those things where I feel like they could have done a lot better. They could have taken some of the plot holes out and something like that, but it is something that I think they will improve on. I understand why they could have done it because I guess they wanted to show more about the world building in terms of the DC universe and how there's more to it, but I feel like for a Superman film, I feel like they should have just made it grounded to a Superman film instead of just trying to encapsulate like everything else, which is kind of hard to do, especially for a superhero film, because they tried doing it for Spider-Man 3 where they tried adding too many villains and stuff like that, and that didn't work out well. So yeah, it doesn't really work in terms of with superhero films unless the runtime is very, very long. Then it could work. But other than that, I don't really have a problem with the film at all. I just feel like there are just certain plots where I just feel like it wasn't really necessary to be added. I guess for the whole necessity of like the whole world building in terms of like building this DCU franchise, I feel like they were probably setting things up and such. But the one thing that really got me hooked up the most was the fact that they made Superman. He is a character who has flaws, but no matter how many flaws he has, he's still not going to give up. And that's the whole ideology about Superman. Even if he goes through a lot of hardship, even if people aren't going to like him for him, even if people are going to hate him, even if people feel like he's tired, they are tired of him, Superman, no matter what, he will fight back. And that's what something Superman does. He gives people hope. He gives people time to basically, there are going to be bad times, and those bad times will make you something better. And that's what Superman basically represents. Like a lot of the times, one of the main focal points of Superman every time we see him on screen is he's saving people. That's something that, although it is very little to show, it actually shows his character. That's what I think Man of Steel wasn't able to do, is to show that every time we see him like do that. He even saved a squirrel. You know how crazy that is. And the fighting scenes, the flying scenes were really choreographed really well. And a lot of the times when we see Superman flying, you actually feel like you're actually into that experience too. Because the way the camera moves, it actually shows him flying. And it really made you feel like you were Superman. And I'm really glad that they had the creative freedom in terms of like showing us these creative choices that James Gunn and his team were able to make. And how they could basically make Superman such a unique character. This such a unique take, in fact, comparing with other superhero representations in terms of Superman. But nonetheless, this is a very solid movie for a start of a franchise where I believe this will go ahead to be something very special. So I'm very glad that they went through this. And overall, I'm going to give James Gunn's Superman an 8 out of 10.